Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining EAC's webinar today. This is Addison Time, and I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. We will be recording the session today, so pending any technical difficulties, everyone will receive a replay of the webinar. Please feel free to drop any questions in the queue, and we will get to them after the presentation. Following the session today, a short survey will appear, so please stick around and answer these questions after the webinar. Today, I will start off with a short introduction of EAC, and then our technical account manager and Creo expert, Todd Liebenow, will be providing an overview of design exploration in Creo and how the combination with Creo Simulation Live can really speed up your design process. At EAC, our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We are located all over the US, and our headquarters are currently established in Minneapolis. We are more than just a value-added reseller for PTC, though. For over 20 years, we have helped companies innovate their product development processes. With experts in 22 different areas of product development, we help organizations create better products, rethink what may seem impossible, and ultimately achieve results that make a lasting impact on the world as we know it today. Beyond helping organizations connect to the information they need, we also work with companies to connect their enterprises as well as specific focal points which provide bits and pieces of their operational value. We also assist design and engineering projects, host educational webinars, and PTC certified training courses. Aside from that, we have also partnered with Formlabs, which allow us to offer our customers some of the latest and most affordable 3D printing options in the industry. All in all, we want you to know that EAC is a company to get all the technology at the forefront of your business to help make your team successful. Our niche is helping you figure out where to start. Our specialty is helping you to build on what you already have. Now, before I go ahead and hand things off to Todd, I do want to take a quick poll from everyone on here. And I'm going to launch that. So now, whether or not you are currently using simulation today, I'm sure you all will take something away from the webinar this morning and hopefully even find some new ways to speed up your design process. And now with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Todd here so we can get started.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for that. Andy, did you? I didn't see
the
full slide pop up. So. Oh, okay.
Right. It did, I think, for them.
So we get the. Okay, it's just for the audience use. I didn't see that it's presented.
Yeah.
All right. So.
All
right.
There you go.
All right. So design exploration. So what are some of the challenges that you typically run into in the product development process, right? So the whole idea of that is to come up with new ideas and try different designs and iterate and innovate, right? So that's part and parcel of what we do. So we're trying out new different versions of a product. So in this case, we're showing a simple example of a chair, right? And we can think of the different options that you might have in mind, right? So we've got one that has a simple pedestal base, one that has sort of a ski type feet, another one that has wheels, and there's different seat styles, right? There's different forms for ergonomics, and some of them might have arms and some of them don't, right? So if we think about this from the product development and specifically the CAD aspect of things, how do you manage all of those different options that you have? You might start off with some of the same features and the same geometry and whatnot, but how do you sort of manage that and iterate and roll forward and take some of the initial thoughts and models into different variations of that? And then how do you actually evaluate those things? And then once you finally roll forward and say, yeah, this is the ultimate design that we want to try and produce, how do you consolidate those different thought processes, those different schemes into the final design? Well, a lot of what we've done in the past is what's shown here. We do backup and save a copy, and we write that to a new folder, and we have all these different versions of the different design that we have. And then we're kind of bouncing around back and forth between these different folders and trying to keep track of what did we do when and what idea did we like and what worked and what didn't. And so just navigating back and forth between the folder structure, whether you're in Windshell for different versions of this, or if you're just doing this, outside of Windshell in a more, old style data management file folder structure, you're bouncing back and forth between these different folders, opening and closing, and cleaning things out of session, and pointing to a new folder. And that's if you can remember where everything actually is. So, and then how do you do design reviews of this, right? So you've got lots of different screenshots, and you might do things like that, or when you're in your conference room, are you doing a design review? How do you manage that? How do you work with those different options? And then how do you bring all that stuff forward, right? So you've got all this extra baggage, if you will, that you have to kind of manage and keep track of. And then if you ever want to go back in time, that's great if you're working on that project right now and you can remember what's going on. But if you're like me, I forget what I've done 6 months ago, or sometimes even a couple of weeks ago, which folder did I want, and which model was I working on. So it gets to be rather cumbersome to kind of keep track of all of these different concepts and versions and flavors of the model. Well, that's where design exploration comes in. So what you're doing here is you're creating what are called checkpoints in the model, and you can have all of these different iterations and design concepts and thought processes all stored in one location. And that can either be done at the part or assembly level, and it could be worked interactively or in an integrated fashion, such that you have different design variations all in one place. And so here you can see sort of a layout or a roadmap of how that works, from a sort of an architectural standpoint. So we're going to have different product revisions, and then we're going to say, hey, we're at 8.3, we're going to start a new branch. We want to start some new design options. And the 8.3 is probably familiar terminology for everybody, but the CP, what that is that's a checkpoint, right? So that's a checkpoint along the way that we're going to create to sort of take a snapshot of that design at that point in time, and then we can step forward and back and toggle back and forth between these different checkpoints and roll forward different options that we want, and sort of keep that all organized in one location. So here's sort of a roadmap of what this does. I'm just going to build out the slide here, and we'll kind of talk about things. Right. So what we do is we start the design exploration session, and I'll show you what this looks like both in slides and in the software here shortly. We're going to snapshot the entire session content, and then we can work with incremental changes, either at the part or assembly level, to roll through our design concepts and sort of look at different options and try out different things. And we can snap back and forth instantly between these different checkpoints. So it's not like we have to worry about clearing our objects out of session in Creo, going to a new working directory, and opening up a new assembly or a new model from there. We can toggle back into the final design that we want to keep, and then we can choose whether we want to accept those changes or roll back to a different checkpoint at any time, since it's pretty risk-free and very straightforward to go ahead and do. So we'll go ahead and build out this slide too. We've got different capabilities. We can split off into different branches and try different things. You can work on different options simultaneously. And here we'll just kind of build out the graphics for this to kind of show. We start off with one sort of initial base model or initial base concept, and we can branch off and go in a lot of different directions, starting from that original design, original concept, and take that into a lot of different directions. And we can, like I said, toggle back and forth between those different options at any point without losing any of the prior work, because it's all contained within that assembly. So what does this look like in session, right? So if you haven't seen this before, if you take a look at the Manage Session menu, and we'll show you this live in a minute or two, take a look at the Manage Session, you'll find the option for Design Exploration Session. And you can either start a brand new one, or you can open one up and kind of begin working from a previously created design session. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here's kind of what it looks like. You're going to note that when we open up that session, it's going to open up what looks like sort of a model tree. It'll be parallel to that, but this is all of your checkpoints. You've got tools for toggling back and forth between different checkpoints and creating branches and creating new checkpoints and things like that. So you can think of this as very much like a snapshot of the process. And so I want to start a new branch of a design or make some changes, and I can sort of go off in a different direction and try the different concepts. So when you start this new session, it's going to give you a couple of different checkpoints. It's going to give you the pre-modified checkpoint is basically where you start from, and then it's going to give you an entry checkpoint. So it gives you the opportunity to change that and then update the different checkpoints from there. Notice there at the bottom of this, you've got an add checkpoint option right here. So as you make different modifications and changes and add features and remove features and whatnot, you can add the checkpoint to sort of capture those changes and modifications that you made. So, and that's exactly what we're showing here in this slide, right? So go ahead and do your design changes. It doesn't really change how you work inside Creo, right? It just gives you an opportunity to manage the little snapshots or checkpoints along the way. So you'll go ahead and create features, add parts, pattern things, just your normal day-to-day operation of working with Creo, except now you've got this additional capability of creating these checkpoints along the way to sort of track your thought process along the way of your design and development. If you'd like to go back in time and take a look at a previous checkpoint, no problem. You just go ahead and select the checkpoint and activate it. Right? And then you can it'll snap back to the previous set of configurations, features, and components and whatnot to take you back to where you were at that point in time. And you can roll back and forth between these different checkpoints at will. So it's really straightforward to look at these different design variations. When you're completed that and you've made the modifications that you want and you want to sort of land on that final option, you can save that design exploration session, right? So there's icons here in this little tray here in the interface for that. So go ahead and just save that session, and that's going to save that off as a TMU file. So it's just a different file type, and we'll show what that looks like to open that up from Creo. So it's just going to save all of the different checkpoints and everything along the way. So it keeps track of all the different changes. And this is the beautiful part of this, is that I don't have to write this out into a different folder. All of those changes and modifications that I've made are stored inside that part or assembly file. So the next time I want to open that up, I can see all of those different changes and say, gosh, let's go back and look at checkpoint number 4 and start from that and do some modifications to it. If you'd like to, go ahead and cancel that. If you want to, abandon those changes, no problem. You can cancel out of that just as easily as saving it. So it's really very easy to work with. It's very straightforward. So here's the process of opening up a previously created, design session. So you just go back and open up that TMU file, and it'll show you that tree from there. So the thought process behind this, right, facilitates creativity, absolutely, right, because you're allowing much more flexibility with respect to creating the different options, storing them all in one place, and you don't have to worry so much about file management and folders and organizational type things. You're just focusing on the design process and doing those types of things instead of being a librarian or some sort of data manager. And evaluating all the possibilities, right? So all of these might be different design variations that you might want to put together, and they all sort of spin off or start from one concept, and you can go a lot of different directions from that and save all of that in one location without having to have a myriad of different folders. Great functionality for design reviews, right? So again, you can just toggle through these different options without having to worry about managing folders and things I've said a couple of times. It's just a really great tool for looking at all the options in one easily accessed place. Okay, so then we're going to show a couple of different things today. We're going to show the Creo Simulate Live, which I have on the screen here, in conjunction with the design exploration. So it's really an awesome set of tools for design and simulation. And we've done a previous presentation on this fairly recently, so I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but just to give you a real quick overview of Creo Simulate Live. Why do I care about Creo Simulate Live? Well, it's a tool that allows me to do basically instantaneous simulation, whether that's structural, vibrational, thermal, or now in Creo 7 flow type analyses, very basically, quickly and easily, right? I don't have to be a specialist in FEA analysis or anything like that. I don't have to make modifications to my model. I don't have to sort of defeature and strip down the model. I can do my simulations on the models as I'm creating them. So I get basically real-time feedback on the design changes and choices that I make, especially in conjunction with this design exploration. So what is it? It's functionality that's a result of the partnership between PTC and ANSYS. And so it's the integration of some of the ANSYS capabilities directly inside Creo Parametric. And it's not intended necessarily to replace Creo Simulate, but rather work in conjunction with it. So you can think of this as an early on set of tools for design validation and simulation. And if you want to get into more detailed types of simulations like optimizations and sensitivity studies and all of those types of things, then Creo Simulate makes more sense for that. But if you're just sort of doing design validations and you want accurate results as far as the different types of analysis we mentioned, right? Structure, vibrational, thermal, or flow analysis, Creo Simulate Live is a great tool for that because it gives me that real-time feedback as I'm making the design changes. One slide that just kind of talks about the summary of capabilities inside Creo Simulate. I've kind of spoken to most of these things here, but just so we have a slide that kind of encapsulates those items on the screen. So with that, I'm going to jump into the demo, and we'll give you an idea about what that looks like. We'll go ahead and get rid of my meeting announcements there. So Creo 7, I'm ready to do a file open, and in this case, I've got a TMU file. So this is one of those design exploration sessions. So the only thing I've done here is basically selected that. So I'm toggling into that file type, right? So I've already gotten one of those started. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab this design session here. And let's go ahead and show you what this looks like. So this is just sort of a summary of the models and things that it's going to retrieve in session. And this will take a second here, and we'll pull this up. So let's get a zoomed in view of the wheel and see what we're looking at here. So motorcycle wheel, we're going to take a look at some design variations of the brake disc here for this assembly. First thing to bring to your attention, you'll notice you've got this design exploration checkpoint tree that opens up parallel to your model tree. So this is sort of your roadmap for all of the different design variations and things that you've set up in your design exploration session. Just to show you the entry point for that, if you haven't created one before, you'll go here to the Manage Session, and in your design exploration session, this is where you would find that functionality. If you hadn't created one, this is where you create a new session, and you can go ahead and just perform that. Since we've already got one open, we don't have any options to pick here, but I just thought I'd show you what it is in the model tree structure, or in the file structure. Okay, so this is the model that we're going to look at, and so we're going to kind of focus specifically on this this disc wheel for the brakes, and let's just go ahead and take a look at that right here. We're going to focus in specifically on this assembly, and let's kind of zoom in and get a feel for what this thing is all about. So you notice that as I toggle between that upper level assembly and my next level subassembly, my design exploration tree is still there, right? So it functions across parts and assemblies to help me really focus on what I'm doing and allow me to create different branches. So for example, if we wanted to do a structural simulation on this right now, let's take a look at where we are. We'll go take a look at our Creo Simulate Live. And go ahead and take a look at these different checkpoints. So I'm here and I want to say, hey, let's look at our original simulation. Now let's go activate that. And so now what that's done is that particular step, that checkpoint, has added in my boundary conditions. So we already have the geometry and material properties. And so now what we've done is we're going to clamp that disc brake here in the area that we've got identified here and apply a load to that. And we can go ahead and run our simulation on that. So go ahead and fire that up. And pretty much instantaneously, we're starting to get feedback as far as the stress that's in that model based on that loading scenario. So let's go ahead and check the units here. We'll change that just a little bit more standard kind of units. So in this case, just keep in mind this number 157 megapascals. That's our maximum stress value. And if we click here, we've got the option to kind of highlight the maximum and minimum values for that. So as you expect, right? So in one of these areas here like this, we've got sort of the stress concentration right there. That's our highest value at about 157 megapascals. If we want to take a look at the deformation for that, we can see that and we can animate that, give an idea of how that model is actually going to behave based on that loading condition that we have. So again, the deflection here is about 0.18 millimeters. So again, keep those numbers in mind, because what we're going to do here is run a couple of different simulations and try and see if we can minimize that deflection and minimize that, or reduce that deflection and reduce those stress values. So taking a look at another different design variation. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn off the simulation for right now. We'll go to a different design checkpoint here. Maybe we want to look at consolidating this. And right now we have an assembly. Maybe we want to try a different option. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this scenario. We're going to activate this. And so now what we've got is an individual part, and we've got some patterns of some different items here. And let's say, for example, we want to focus in on one specific part and sort of consolidate those instead of having two different components that are bolted together. We'll see what happens if we can consolidate that into one specific, or one single component rather. So again, just toggling into a different checkpoint in my design exploration session. We're here, and so again, we just toggled into a different version of that. We go back to our live simulation, and we'll go ahead and run our simulation of that. Again, just take a couple seconds here and we'll get some feedback on the stress and deflection of the model. Okay, so in this case, our deflection's at about 0.15, And if we take a look at the stress values here, and let's change that back to megapascals. And in this case, our deflection is down, but our stress is actually up. So the design change that we made here is not necessarily helping us because we're going the wrong way, and we've actually got higher value of stress. And if we go back and look at the maximum and minimum values for that, now we've got a maximum stress location here. You can see that that's a little bit higher than 157, 158 that we had previously. So our design change that we're making here, taking us in the wrong direction. So let's see if we can go back and make some additional changes or try something different to give us a different result. So I'm going to go back to a different state here in the model. So the thought process is, hey, maybe if I change the shape of that cutout, I can get some different results. So how might we do that? So I've gone back to a sort of a starting point for that, and I've got a sketch here that we can maybe take a look at, and let's see what happens if we can make some geometry here that might change that. This is also going to give you an opportunity to talk about body functionality now in Creo 7. So what we're going to do here, instead of making a cut, I'm going to go back and create a body and show you kind of some of the capabilities that are now available in Creo 7. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that body, and I'm just going to have it go the top. We're sketching on a mid-plane there, and we're going to have the top of that body that we're going to create line up with the top surface of our brake disc. So go ahead and create that. And then if we go back to the model, right, so we're toggling out of the simulate live, and we'll go back here and show you now what we have here as far as the body functionality. So we have three different bodies. We have the basic disc shape. We have a shape here where the brake pad is actually attaching. And we've got the body that we just created. So let's go ahead and hide out that top level body and kind of show you what we're working on. And just to kind of highlight things a little bit, let's go change the color of that so we can kind of stay focused on what that body actually is. Okay, so this is the little bit that we just created. And if we zoom in on this a little bit, what I'm going to do is create sort of a rounded edge on that, and then we're going to ultimately subtract that out from the shape of the disc. So let's go ahead and show you how the body functionality works. So I'm just going to create a rounded shape there, and to do that, I'm just going to grab this edge. And if you've not worked with intent features before, they're pretty cool. They've been around for quite a while, but not everybody knows about them. So what this intent feature, this intent edge does is it walks around and grabs that entire edge all the way along there, and that becomes the trajectory for the sweep that I'm going to create. Okay, so let's go back in and zoom in on this just a little bit. And what I want to do here is let's go create a sketch that actually is a circle, and we'll kind of make a little round feature here on that. Something looks like that. And then maybe I want to create a little straight edge that goes from here. We'll have that kind of be tangent there. And then we'll just go ahead and kind of clean up some of the other pieces that I don't want. So we'll just kind of trim away and there that I don't need, and we'll change this to a little bit larger radius so you can kind of see that. That's the shape that I'm going to cut out. That looks good. And we're going to remove that material, so we're going to cut that out. Okay, and so that's kind of what we created. Let me just go back here to a view of that. That might be a little easier to see. All right, so that's the shape that we've cut out of that. All right, so now we're going to go back to this body, and I want to, remember that that's on the mid plane of the disc, and I want to mirror that about that lower plane. So we'll just go ahead and pick that. So I basically mirrored that. And now what I need to do is basically fuse those two bodies together so they behave as one unit. So I'm just going to go here to my Boolean operations. I'm going to just pick the two bodies and merge them together. Okay, nothing fancy there about that. It's just basically making that be one unit. And then we'll go back and turn on this top level so we can kind of see where that fits in the overall scope of the wheel or the brake that we're making. So now what we want to do is, gosh, we got to pattern that out. So we'll go ahead and pick on that body. And so just say, hey, let's actually pattern that out. And I want to make this be an axial type pattern. And I want to pick this center axis as my thing that I want to pattern that about. And now what I'll do here is say, I'd like to actually have that take a total number of 8 of those patterns all the way around. I want them to be evenly spaced. And then the next thing I'm going to go do here is pick on my references. And I'm actually patterning out not necessarily the body, right? I want to get rid of that, but I actually want to bring in the surfaces for that because I ultimately want to subtract that out. So I'll just go pick on the surfaces there for that. And then the last thing I want to do here is actually set that up to kind of trim that out, right? To get set up for that. So we'll go ahead and preview that and end up with our geometry there. And again, last step is just to create a Boolean operation for that to say, let's go ahead and subtract out that piece of information, or those little yellow wedge-shaped parts from that, and we're just going to say, let's subtract that, and we'll end up with geometry that looks like that. So again, a little bit different methodology in working with bodies, but once you start working with it, you'll find it's very easy and very powerful way to go back and create geometry. Okay, so now we've got a model that's set up, ready to go. Let's take a look at some simulation of that. So now in this case, we didn't necessarily have any boundary conditions assigned to that because this was sort of a de-featured model. So we just need to go back in, and I'll show you now how to go back in and put in the boundary conditions on our model for simulation. So what I'll do now is go and say I want to pick on the two surfaces that I want to actually constrain, right? So I want those to be, that's the area that I'm grabbing on with the disc caliper. So we've assigned that. Then the next thing we'll do is create a moment, right? So that's our load we're going to apply. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and get set up here. We'll put in 500 Newton meters. And we're going to just pick on the geometry that we want to create or apply that to. So I'll just pick on the bolt hole surfaces. Pick that and we'll apply that load to that location. So that's the same loading condition that we had before. And I've just kind of shown you how to set that up. So again, running the simulation, we'll show you what the results of that are here. Just a minute, we'll wait for that to update. Some results to look at. So again, now we're significantly less. We're at about 132 megapascals, where we were at 157 to 163 megapascals before. And if you take a look at our displacement for that, right, so you can see that we're actually quite a bit less. The big thing is the stress is actually lower. So within the span of about 15 minutes, we've looked at creating new geometry in 3 different simulations, all pretty quickly and pretty easily. So this, as I said before at the onset, really good set of tools for working inside Creo to help me look at several different design variations and run simulations on that, give me a much better insight into the performance of my model without having to track somebody in simulation, the analysis group, track them down, get on their schedule, and have them run a couple different scenarios for me. So that's what I had for you today from the presentation standpoint, actually showing the software, how Design Exploration and Creo Simulate Live can work together to really speed up and enhance your product development process. So Addie, are there any questions or any comments from anyone?
I don't see any questions in the queue, so.
All right, so well, let me turn things around, I guess. It's just not we're necessarily going to get answers or feedback from people that are watching, but what would this mean to you if you guys could have access to this kind of tool set today, as far as having access to quick and easy simulations, and how useful would that be, or what kind of design insights could you get if you had access to those kind of capabilities? And then, other questions might be things like, what would you see as a next step? I mean, as far as getting closer to the technology, is it something that you want to see a demo on your models, or have a further discussion about how can we help you, see how this might fit into your design process and how this might work at your company? Certainly happy to have those conversations. Love talking to people about simulation at Creo. So if there's anybody that has any questions or wants to follow up at a later date, we're happy to talk about doing a deeper dive, getting you hands-on with the technology, or showing you how this might work with your models.
Right.
So things to think about. If there aren't any other questions, let me see here if I can bring back the presentation.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today to wrap up the Creo webinar series. If you missed any of the previous sessions, I will provide a link to the replay library for you to enjoy in the follow-up email being sent out later this afternoon. As you can see here, just like so many other organizations who have benefited from implementing this solution, we honestly believe in this tool and the value it can provide anyone when incorporated within different design iterations to truly maximize your time. And if you happen to have any additional questions, just like Todd said, would like to learn more about how simulation can benefit you and your organization, or are interested in setting up a customized demo on your model, please feel free to reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to connect you with one of our product experts. To wrap things up this morning, another reminder, there will be a short survey that will appear once we end here. If you have a couple more minutes to spare, We would really appreciate if you could stick around and answer those questions for us. Thanks again, everyone. We hope you're able to join us for more EAC webinars in the future.